Hey everybody, my name is Don Weber and today I'm going to be talking about CSS specificity and redundancy. So just to kind of start off, what is specificity? I found a definition online that I kind of like. It says specificity is the algorithm used by browsers to determine the CSS declaration that is the most relevant to an element, which in turn determines a property value to apply to the element. So simply put, that's just talking about how the computer has an algorithm to decide which of the elements, like the CSS elements, are going to be visible or not if there are two that are competing. So for example, if there are two tags that are trying to change the background color, one to blue and one to green, this algorithm comes into play to kind of decide which of the elements it is going to show on the document. And when you're talking about specificity, there are three key factors to take into consideration. And just remember that specificity is represented with three numbers. And so as you can see, IDs are represented as changing the number in the first column. Elements targeted by an ID selector are highly specific, giving them top priority. And then classes and attributes are represented in the second section, or the second column. And selectors using class names or attributes carry moderate specificity. And then element types like p tags or div tags are represented by the third number, the third column, and they hold the lowest specificity. So just to kind of show the hierarchy of this, elements in the first column always take precedence over elements in the last two columns, and kind of like that, elements in the middle column will always take precedence over elements in the last column. So an example of that, if you're comparing two elements, one has a specificity of 100 and the other one has a specificity of 058, the one with the specificity of 100 wins because there is a higher number in that first column. On the other hand, if that second element was 158 instead of 058, then that would win because the other two columns are higher than the first element. And then similar to that, an element with a specificity of 010 will prevail over an element with specificity of 008. And again, if it was 018, then that one would take precedence. So here we'll just go to this code pen to kind of exhibit this a little bit more. I kind of thought up a little analogy. When my wife tells me to go to the store to get some soup, but she doesn't tell me what soup to get, she's not specific enough, then I'm going to come back with the wrong type of soup. And so here we have, there are a bunch of soups: alphabet soup, chicken noodle soup, tomato soup, all of the soup. And so as you can see here, all of them are in a p tag. So we'll just go ahead and change this so that the background color is green. So that's going to change all of them because they all have that p tag. And this has a specificity of 001. Okay, so that's not very specific because it's just targeting all of the p tags. And if there was something in there that wasn't soup, but was still in a p tag, then it would still be going to that. So now let's try and be a little bit more specific. So we have a class with soup for all of them. And we'll change the background color to light blue. And so it's still targeting all of them, but it's a little bit more specific because elements are that third column, and then classes and classes are in this middle column. So this has a specificity of 010. Okay, so let's say that we want to change this and get even more specific. So now we can do p.soup and change the background color to yellow. And so now that changed because it has a higher specificity. Sorry, that's hard to say a lot. because that has a 0, 1, 1 because of that p tag. Okay, so now we would like to get more specific than just all of the soup. And so we're going to add one that attributes to this first column. So let's take an ID of alphabet. So alphabet, and then we forgot the hashtag for ID. And we'll change the background color to red. Okay, so now that changed because this has a specificity of 100. So as you can see, this 100 beat out the 011 because the ID will always beat out just classes or element tags. Okay, and one thing to note is that if the score is the same, then it takes whichever one takes place lower in the document. So just to kind of show this, we'll change it as the same exact ID tag, but we're just going to change it to light blue. And as you can see, it changes even though the specificity is 100. Same as this one. It just happens a little bit later in the script. And then just to kind of show how specificity works, we're going to add the class as well. So we'll do hashtag alphabet dot soup, and then background color, we'll make this purple. And you can see that it changed because this has a specificity of 110. And then we can even beat this by having a div alphabet soup background color is white. So that is 111. Okay, so going back to the slides. So there's one or two ways that we can override the specificity algorithm. The first one is with inline styles. So that's when you put the CSS styling directly into your HTML. So we'll show that here. So let's say that we want our alphabet soup, or actually let's do our tomato soup. We don't like that it's yellow. So we'll do style. Oh, there we go. Style equals background color. I'll make it light blue. There you go. And so this isn't even in the CSS document, but you can see that it's overriding this yellow here for everything, every soup. So this obviously takes precedence. And then the other way that you can override the algorithm is using exclamation mark important. So anything, if you can't figure out how to get something to show up, you can put it as important and it will work. So let's say, see how this purple is getting overridden by the white, but then we put exclamation mark important. You can see that it changes back to purple. And just kind of as a note, the exclamation point important is kind of bad practice, just because it shows that you could have done something else in your CSS rather than just putting the exclamation mark important. So you should only use this if it's absolutely necessary. So now just moving on to redundancy. So redundancy is just basically three things: duplicate code, unnecessary specificity, and eliminate unused code. So you should avoid repeating the same CSS code for multiple CSS elements, because honestly it's just messy and there's no point for it. And then as you can see in the specificity, I didn't really show it that well, But you could go really over the top by saying, oh, main, then div, then class of soup, and ID chicken, just to get that specific thing. But honestly, usually just putting the hashtag chicken will get you exactly what you need. So it's a little bit redundant and unnecessary if you go over the top with that. And then just the last one, eliminate unused code. So anything that's not doing anything, you should just take it out just to make it easier to read. So here, I'll just show a couple examples before I wrap up. So here are soups again. And you can see that in the CSS, it's repeating this border, padding, width, and text align in every single one. And so honestly, it'd be way better to just take all of this out. And obviously the background color is the thing that's changing, so you gotta leave that. Okay, and then now we can just put all of the IDs right here. That way we're not repeating the code. Okay, there we go. And so now everything's being applied to all of these tags. But honestly, the better thing that we could do is just change all that for soup. And it does the same exact thing. So there's the good, better, best. So obviously we shouldn't be repeating code, but it just cleans up nicely by having a class for all like items. So that pretty much wraps up my presentation on CSS specificity and redundancy. If you guys have any questions, I'd love to answer them in this discussion board. But thank you guys for watching.